Oh no, I can't hear myself anymore.
I can't hear him either, but hey, this is great.
Turn my mic on.
You're listening to the WannaBes Mobcast.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 7 of the WannaBes Mobcast. Today we've got Destry Abbott on. We had his son Cooper Abbott a while back, and we had so much fun talking to him. We thought we'd bring the real deal. Sorry, Cooper.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
Abbott Senior. No, we're super excited to talk to him. He's a legend in the sport, and
I was super grateful for his willingness to come on to the podcast because
good job, John. You're doing a great job bringing him on, by the way. You just keep lining them up.
The nice thing about this sport is everybody is so nice. They just, everybody's willing to. Maybe not everybody's time, but everybody's at least willing. They're like, hey,
that's
like
cool.
I see you've done a few of these. You're talking to big
You guys look like you need some help.
Yeah.
It's a sympathy podcast. But we'll take it.
Graham was probably a sympathy podcast.
These poor fools.
Now we're actually getting into you guys are doing something cool. So
we try.
Really appreciate Destry's time and coming in and talk to us because he's like the first legit desert racer that
we've had a lot of enduros. And
we've had trials, enduro,
branching out.
Yeah, so another piece of the puzzle in the moto universe. And
I'm stoked. Hopefully he'll give some secrets away about Cooper, and we can embarrass him on some future podcast.
I'm sure there'll be some of that in there somewhere. Yeah,
but
nothing like stoking inter-family rivalries to make our podcast popular.
Listen, I feel like dirt biking's all about giving each other just a little bit of shit. It's how you stay competitive. Before we talk ourselves to death, Destry Abbott, everybody.
Yes.
Thanks, Tim, for coming on. We're super stoked to have you. We have a ton of questions lined up, so we'll see how far we get. We'll try to respect your time. If you get tired of talking to us, just call it.
Just hang up on us.
Yeah. We respect that. We usually run around an hour, and we'll see how far we get through the questions, and we'll just have a fun conversation if that works.
Absolutely. I'm good with that. I'm pretty easy going and go with the flow. So
Cool. Sounds like a good deal.
Okay, I'll start.
Launch.
Yeah. I started the way that we start all of these, right? I think pretty much everybody that we're going to talk to or is going to listen to this podcast is probably already going to know who you are. But for those maybe who don't, I think it's probably good to just give an introduction and kind of tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, what's the elevator pitch?
Yeah. I'm not a good salesman. I can tell you that. Anybody usually says anybody hates talking about themselves, and I'm that guy. I'm a pretty quiet guy, to be honest with you. But my name's Destry Abbott. I've raced for professionally motorcycles, off-road mainly, and I've done it pretty much my whole life. My dad raced, and I just got into it at a young age. I had a bike when I was 7-8 years old, but honestly didn't get into racing until I was 12 or 13, and I was full beginner. It was just my dad raced desert, and we kind of went down that road for a while. And it's just something that I've always been a ball stick sports. So even through high school, I played sports, and I just love being active. I love being outside and just being involved with something. And I did a lot of team sports, but when I got into motorcycles, it was just something that I can't say I was a natural. I talked to a lot of my students. And I go, you know what? A lot of the parents will ask me, hey, do you think my kid's the next big thing? And I'm like, there are so many things that can happen. Distractions, girls, getting into other things that you probably should be into. And, there's just motorcycles was my passion. It's what I love to do. And my parents knew that, and they used it in a good way, meaning if I wasn't doing well in school, I wasn't passing grades, and, school wasn't easy for me. So I would go through the motions, but if I wasn't trying, we didn't go racing that week, or we didn't go riding, and that was everything to me. So I think nowadays it's cool when I have some of my parents or students that discipline their kids in different ways like that, instead of just always give them what they want. And so kind of rambling, this is what I do, and I kind of went off topic there, but
that's perfect.
It's I love motorcycles. I love being around it. I turned 50 this year, and motorcycles is still my passion. It's still what I love to do. I still love working with riders. I've been riding the last 4 days. This is my first day off, just doing classes. And I'm like, every day I go out, it's my therapist. I get on my motorcycle, and the rest of the world shuts off. And I don't need to explain that to you guys, because I think you get that. It's
100%.
something that a lot of people don't get until they're in those shoes, and they're like, oh, now I get your addiction to this. And I'm like, that's what it is. It's a good addiction to me, because there's plenty of bad ones. And I'm like, this one is you guys, I don't know how familiar you are, but my family, we're all motorcycle people. We're all off-road, and it's awesome. I'm really blessed to be where I am.
Talking about it as therapy, I think is a perfect way to put it, because I felt that I rode street for a few years, like not real seriously, but I commuted on a street bike, and it was always like the best way to start and end a day, because all kinds of shit happens at work or whatever, and you've got traffic, but you get out on the bike and just all that stuff melts away, and it's just you and the bike and the engine, and it's a whole other. I mean, you're in the zone, and I can't think of a better way to unwind or take your mind off everything.
Yeah, I always joke it's like it's either therapy or dirt bikes, and they're going to cost about the same amount, so you might as well have fun instead of just talking about your problems.
I love that. I love that this is a family thing. So obviously, we talked to Cooper, but I didn't realize that your dad raced too. So this has become like multi-generational at this point, which is super awesome.
Yeah, we actually did last year. You guys were talking about King of Hammers and King of Motos and stuff a little bit ago, and before we went on, of course. But one thing I was going to say is we went last year. My dad rode, I rode, my son was riding. He raced, but we didn't race at that one. And all three of us were riding, and we did a couple photos, and I was like, this is pretty damn sick. Like 3 generations, and now I'm a grandpa. My wife and I are grandpa and grandma, and and my daughter's husband, Jared McNeil, big freestyle, like he lives out by you guys. And so I'm like, that kid's going to be in motorcycles too. And it's really cool. And just to be able to see it keep spreading through the family must mean it's a great thing, because
you did something right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I've struggled to get my kids into it, and they're really not. I'm hoping they'll come around at some point, but I don't know. I also appreciate what you said about turning 50. I just turned 40, 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, something like that. So I got a little ways to catch up to you, but it's inspiring to see guys that are older than me that are still active and riding, because that gives me hope that hopefully when I get there, I'll still be going too. And so I like to see that.
You will. Your mindset changes in a way. Like my mindset. I still feel like a kid mentally, and can be a struggle sometimes.
Yeah. Feel 15.
I can't do what I used to do, and then consequences, fast twitch muscles, and what it used to be. But I'm still having fun on the motorcycle. I'm not worried about. Maybe I'll try to keep up with the kids for a little bit, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm good. But I love riding, and it's. Yeah. I'm sure if I'm still around at 60, 70. I'll still be riding it. Now, I've made a little bit more of a push on the adventure bike side. I have a 790 KTM, and
nice.
I go with my buddy Dan and some other guys, and I'm like, this is a whole new world. I used to hate riding Jeep roads and stuff like that, but on the 790, I'm like, this is bitching. This is so much fun. And, and we do 200, 300 miles a day, and either spend the night somewhere or make it a one-day trip. And it's just cool stuff that I'm seeing, a totally different aspect of motorcycle riding than the extreme, or just trying to go as fast as I can and not enjoying the moment or the environment, which now I'm getting to enjoy that more. And I'm like, I talked to someone the other day, a kid I was training here, and I used to go to Europe for ISTEs and things like that. And I'd be over there for 2 weeks, but it would fly in, walking tests, doing everything testing. As soon as the race is over, boom, I'm flying back home. I'm more of a homebody. I want to be with my family. And now I look back and I'm like, shit, I was in some pretty damn cool places that I didn't get to take in. And now my wife and I were like, if everything goes well, we're going to go back to places and enjoy it and slow down. As you get older, you both are still pretty damn young. And as you get older, you realize you appreciate things more. And that's kind of the place we're becoming, or getting into, I should say.
I'm glad to hear it. There's a couple of guys that we ride with that are in, I think Dennis is in his 60s now, and fast as shit. I mean, faster than me. And getting a little bit older, but just still tearing it up, and I love to see that. It's such an inspiration. So
it's so cool to see the sport in a way where it's like, you think professional sports, it's like, you get into them really young as a kid, but then like the longevity of it, most of the people who get into riding stay in it, for as long as they can still be walking, right? Like as long as they're still vertical, they're still swinging their leg over a bike, which is.
I always hate seeing people quit out. There's that once in a while you see guys that'll give up, and it's like,
you see it every once in a while, but it's always surprising when it happens.
I do know a few pros that literally once they were done, I'm like, when's the last time you're ridden? I'm like, oh, it's been a couple of years. And I'm like, holy crap. It's been over a week for me. I feel like I need to get back on my bike. I'm like, I missed the thing.
Something's missing.
Yeah. And I'm like, the speed's not what it used to be. I enjoy trail riding more. And people ask me, or during my D8 training classes, like, hey, I'm not that fast. I'm like, I don't give a crap how fast you are. It's more about your personality, the vibe. I'm like, dude, if you're having fun, I'm enjoying riding and working with you. I don't care if I'm waiting up, or sometimes you have to wait up for me with the good riders. And I'm like, it's about the environment. It's about really taking it in and enjoying the people you're around. And I think that's majority of our sport. You know, I'm really lucky and blessed to have a great business that does well and get to work with a lot of great people. I don't have, very, very rarely, I have a client where I'm like, man, that sucked, or that wasn't fun. I'm like, if they sign up for a class, it's because they want to ride and they want to work and they want to get better and they want to learn how to ride the bike safer, more efficient, and have more fun, you know? And I'm like, that's what I'm about. So, you know, cool. Where I'm at now, it's fun to, you know, I'll give people crap if they're not in a KTM, if they're riding something else, but and now of course I give my son crap because he's on the Sherco, but they're actually great bikes, and you know, I'm happy for him. And
we won't tell you how highly he spoke of them then.
yeah. So I'm a trash talker. I'm bad about that. You know, sometimes I shouldn't say things, and I open my mouth up. My wife usually yells at me for that, but
that's what they're around for, though. My wife too. She's what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, that's what the sport's all about. Like,
I was just going to say the same
of this
thing.
Is trash talking each other. We got
that's
sent us
fun.
A couple of years ago, and man, it's just like every hill climb, everything where he makes something and I don't, or vice versa.
Those are the best moments.
Oh man, it's
100%.
brutal.
But it made the sport, like, it made our rides that much more fun, because now we're like, you can carry on that garage conversation, but while you're riding, it's adds that extra element, which is a ton of fun.
Dude, that's listening to you two. I'm like, I'm stoked for you guys, because I'm like, that is my environment. We have my buddies. We just have a good time, and you know, and it's competitive. Yet we're happy when someone else makes something, or you're like, shit, now I got to go do that. But it's like we're pushing each other, and it's just it's a good time. And then if it's a race or a good trail riding, you got stories to tell. Like, how many things can you do that are what we do and people get to enjoy it? You know, it's too bad. I wish more people got to realize how family oriented and how awesome motorcycles are, because sometimes I feel like it's mislabeled, you know, when people talk about motorcycles, and I'm like, no, dude, we are really family oriented. They're good people. You know, we care about things. It's not rebels like a lot of people think. You know, it's just a good sport.
I appreciate that passion, because I actually I came over from that crowd, I guess. So I spent a lot of years riding street, and I always thought the dirt crowd were kind of punks, you know. And my brother was into it way ahead of me, and was always, come ride, and was like, no, I'm not getting into that crap, you know, like I'm fine. And finally I went out and rode with him one time, and I was like, man, I've been missing this my whole life and didn't even know it. It's like whole different. And then all the people that I've met, totally different than what I would have expected, you know. It's just a bunch of cool dudes and guys and gals, and I don't know, like, not at all what I thought it was going to be. Like, there are those guys, but you know, a lot fewer than I expected.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. Wanted to ask you a little bit about some of the, you know, tell us a little bit about your racing history. What are your highlights? What do you think of when you think of sort of look back on the career, as it were?
My accomplishments would be 5 Hare and Hound championships, like national championships there. I won 5 Best in the Desert. That was good. And then 7 ISD gold medals. I did 10 of them. 3 of them I DNF, 2 were mechanical issues, and then 1 I crashed out. But, you know, I did Pikes Peak. A lot of people don't know my background as far as a moto guy. I used to race outdoor nationals. I qualified for 450 mains, and, you know, I just wasn't good enough. I was just trying to score a point, make the top 20, but I made plenty of mains. But I use that more as a training tool, but more off-road. I mean, I'm fortunate I really wanted to be well-rounded. So, you know, I won a national enduro, won a hare scramble, won Hare and Hounds, like pretty much all disciplines. GCC, the 4th overall, was the best I ever did back there. But that was just a different game. Those guys were just so good in the woods, you know, and I had nothing for them. But I always liked going to different disciplines and riding it and learning. You know, to me, I wasn't afraid to fail. I felt like, you know what? I'm not worried about losing. I'm going to walk away from this learning something. Somebody's going to be better at you. in everything, every aspect of riding, training, or whatever it is. I'm like, so I try to take in what I could from each type of racing or whatever it is. And so I try to be pretty versatile. And, you know, I was fortunate to be able to be with Kawasaki, factory Kawasaki, for 20 years. And I don't know if that's really happened with any factory or whatever, motocross, whatever
That's
it is.
a good run. Yeah,
I don't think
That was
you hear
a
about
really
that.
good run. And then finally they cut the program. As I kind of was at the end of my career, I was more of a mentor to like Taylor Robert, Justin Soule, a lot of the other riders. I was still the factory rider, but I was the older guy on the team, and I was more just a top 5 guy then. And I was kind of like mentoring them, you know, training them. And that's, you know, we'll get into the training side, I'm sure.
Yep.
And that's where I kind of enjoyed that. You know, I did a lot of suspension testing, helping the bikes get better, and working with R&D, and just really, I enjoyed what I did. I you know, it's why I still do it today. I'm just like, I just wanted to be kind of, not, I would say the best at everything, but I wanted to be pretty good. And I was fortunate to win some pretty big championships, and, you know, and make a living doing something I love. So
that's the coolest part, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And even today, I still do something I love, which is now trying to help riders reach their goals. Yep. Or I have a lot of doctor clients that they just want to ride the bike safer. They love motorcycles, but they don't want to ride it dangerously. So we teach them how to ride the bike the right way. And, you know, don't let the bike ride you. You want to be in control, and, you know, easier said than done, because I got plenty of photos and videos of the bike taking me where it wants to go and me not wanting to go there. But, you know, it's like,
we were watching some of your crash clips just before we kicked off here, just for fun.
yeah. And of course, the biggest videos are all crash ones. Anytime you go to YouTube and it's like typing my name, it's all the crash ones. And I'm like, really?
You have a few epic ones in there.
Listen, even for small time guys like us, because we built an Instagram channel around fucking up. So you just don't be afraid to let it all hang out. And
you have some pretty epic crashes in there.
You do.
Yeah, I got some good ones. But I walked away from pretty much all. And, you know, it's part of the game when you're pushing the envelope at the highest level. It's like you got to practice being comfortable, being uncomfortable where you're riding that edge. And, you know, it's at the highest level, depending on if it's a sprint type of race or it's a long race, then you back it down, and it's more about endurance, a longevity, a marathon. Mm-hmm. But on a sprint format like Supercross, motocross, those guys are riding on the edge. Like every half a second, tenth of a second counts, where long 8-hour races, you can be smarter, and, you know, then endurance plays a factor and all that stuff. So.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I really like what you said about sort of this, I'll call it cross training, like you're crossing these different race formats. And I like that, because I'm a big believer in sort of cross training, both like professionally and on the dirt bike, and trying to do, you know, fitness and mountain biking for better lines and all this kind of stuff. Is there anything in particular that you've sort of pulled through these different formats that stands out?
You nailed that really well. As far as like a great cross training thing for me is a trials bike. Some of the best riders, some of the most talented riders I know are trials riders. You know, Tony Bow, anybody that knows Tony Bow on a trials bike, I love, anytime that dude posts a video, I'm like the first one to like it, because I'm like, that was sick. You know, the stuff he does is mind blowing. And I think trials bikes, even mountain biking, you know, things like that will all help each other out. Like, to me, if you can work on if you just work on one thing, you're not actually benefiting yourself. To where if you're working on a mountain bike, you know, trials riding, it's like I said, one weekend I'll be motocross, and the next weekend I was out riding enduro cross or extreme. And I just think it helps you become a better rider, and it doesn't wear you out versus doing the same thing. Supercross guys, you know, it's 6-7 months of riding a supercross track 3, 4, 5 days a week. And I'm like, I would literally be burnt out. Like, that doesn't,
I feel like that would get old.
Yeah, it would get old. And I'm like, you know, that's what all the kids want to do, and that's where the big following is, because they get the TV coverage. And I'm a big fan of it. I love watching it, but I want to do all different types of riding. So yeah, to answer your question, make it a lot shorter, I guess, is, you know, the mountain biking, any of that stuff, any cross training you can do on 2 wheels, I think is beneficial to you.
Yeah.
Do you do much mountain biking? I wasn't sure. Like, it sounds like you ride a ton on the dirt bike, so.
I used to do a lot of road bike training because I trained in zones. I do zone training, like recovery rides. I could ride zone 2 after a race, the day after a race.
Right.
You know, you should definitely flush your system, do something light.
Yep.
Just go for a light cycle. Now I do more hikes. I don't road bike. I actually have a gravel bike because we'll ride on some little Jeep roads that are fun because it just got a lot more dangerous here where I'm at.
That's
and
fair.
I have a mountain bike. I don't mountain bike as much. And then I have an e-bike, which I love the e-bike, even though some of the people around here aren't big e-bike people. But I'm like,
I love it. I love it because you can pick up the pace, and if you still put your heart into it, nothing changes. You just going faster.
I'll put it on eco or trail, and I'm working, and I just have a longer, more fun ride, and then
you just cover more miles, right?
Yeah. Cooper and the boys, they're on their regular mountain bikes. I'm like, oh, sweet, I get to turn it up because they're pulling away, but I get to enjoy riding with them. My dad, who's almost 80, will ride my mountain or our e-bike, and it's neat to see him being active, and I'm like, that's cool that he still wants to ride around. And
I love that. I want to make I appreciate you saying that because I want to make a quick pitch for I don't think people realize that e-bikes are that kind of equalizer. So my wife is not, she's not at my level. She doesn't have an interest in being there, but we can go cycling together because she's got an e-bike, and it means she can keep up, and we can go the same distance, and I get to work out and she gets to work out, and the motor makes the difference. And I think that's fantastic. There's nothing else that's going to get your family in that way. So.
Yeah, you nailed that. We went to Mammoth a couple 2 years ago, and Cooper and I were on our regular mountain bikes, and my wife was riding our e-bike, and she absolutely loved it. It was the first time she's like, that was a lot of fun. And I'm like, fuck no, I worked. Kicked my ass. I wanted to be on the e-bike, but it was a good time. We had fun with it. So
that's cool.
Yeah, we kind of.
I wonder.
Yeah, you're good at that. That's great. I wanted to ask if you had, because obviously you've kind of made a name for yourself in the desert racing side. I was wondering if you've ever wanted to, or if you've ever done anything in the Baja scene with the 1000 or the 500, and just if you've ever been down there.
Yeah, so I've been down to Mexico a lot. I love Mexico. I actually really enjoy riding down there. I've done the Tecate here, Scramble, plenty of times. I've actually raced the Baja 1000 after my Kawasaki factory days, because Kawasaki, going back a little ways, one of their top riders, Danny Hamill, who is a legend and someone that was an inspiration to me and I admired, and he passed away down there racing Baja, so Kawasaki pulled the plug. And then they had a privateer team. I think last year I did it was 2013, and we finished second overall. We actually finished first overall bike wise, and then the Honda team beat us on time, and we had a pretty good lead. So to answer your question, I have raced 1000 a couple times towards the end of my career, but I had fun. The other one we were battling, it was all the way down to La Paz, all the way down to the point, and a little over 1,000 miles. We were a minute and a half behind the Honda team, and our motor let go. So, and that was going to be a tight one. That was going to be one so I've only done it twice, and got a second and a DNF. So I did it because I wanted to kind of put that on my resume. I'm like, I enjoy the pre-running. I didn't enjoy honestly, some people hate me for this. I didn't enjoy the race as much because being the first bike is pretty scary, to be honest with you, because you got to ride not just as fast as you can go. We were talking a little bit about sprint and endurance, and it's a marathon down there. It's really about how to save the bike, when to go fast. When you see spectators, you're slowing down. If I'm in the middle of nowhere and there's just a crap load of people, I slow way down because they're usually building like a jump or something. They want to see you hit something, and a lot of times it's not viciously, but they don't know how to make a jump, so it's just a huge kicker. And to me, I was just like, I'll lose 5 seconds here instead of throwing the race away. And
I didn't realize that people were messing with the course. That's really interesting. It never occurred to me.
Booby traps are huge down there. So, both times I was usually the first bike, and it was a little scary. And so that aspect, I really had to pay attention to my surroundings, and I love it. I didn't care for that 100 miles per hour as fast as you can go for a long time. I'm like, as I got older, I enjoyed the more technical, slower pace. Even when I raced, that was more my better side. I like the stronger, more technical, harder terrain, whooped out versus just riding on roads. I felt like that's where my training or whatever would pay off a little bit more than a lot of guys can go pretty fast down straightaways versus the harder, more technical stuff.
There's a saying from I think from the car racing world, but it's that what was it? Straight roads are for fast cars, curvy roads are for fast drivers, right?
There you go. And that's, I actually have not heard that. That's actually really good, and that's really accurate. The same thing, racing or riding or training. I'm like, people want to come and train, and like, I want to practice on roads. I'm like, dude, let's practice on braking drills. Let's practice corner. Let's practice weighting the pegs, getting body position right, and accelerating. That's going to help you out more than the fast roads. You know, motocross, supercross, the riders that separate each other are their corner speed, acceleration, smooth throttle, and I could go on about the training side because that's what I enjoy now. But you know, you nailed it right there.
When we talked to Graham Jarvis, right, that was how we kicked off this podcast, and you know, his whole thing was like, you know, he's won by not being the fastest guy, but he's always the fastest through the technical sections, and that's really where he's separated himself from the pack, is just being able to be the best in that way, and
the hardest stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you make up a lot of time because you have to pick your bike up a few times. You're going to burn 10-15 minutes and about 5,000 extra calories you didn't need to.
So I got a quick Graham a story for you. Graham's an awesome dude. I haven't heard that one. I want to watch you guys on that because that dude is a badass. Like, that guy's so cool. So you were talking about King of Motos earlier, and the first year we had bikes, he signed up, and I've never met him. And super nice guy. You know, I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. I get to race with Graham and all this. And I was on a Cakes 450 for King of Motos, which was just a bad idea. I didn't know any better. And it was in Lucerne, and I'm like, I'm going to race the 450. And anyways, the first mountain, I crashed going down. I broke my brake pedal. So I have my bike on the side. I'm like trying to bend it back, and the guys are gone, you know. And next thing you know, I throw down. I'm like, I got to catch up. And I passed Graham in the valley, and I'm like, oh, dude, I thought that guy was going to be good. And now I'm like in fifth or whatever. And as soon as we came to the first mountain of gnarly rocks, I'm just trying to like get around. I'm trying to get to the top, like however I can, pushing the bike. And Graham, I literally had to stop and watch. I became a spectator because he was just going up, stop, and so trials. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that was sick. And then, you know, of course, I never saw him again. And he won, and I ended up getting third. But I talked to him afterwards, and you know, it was like, that was sick, dude. Like,
that's cool.
I'm like, I was early 40s, and I'm like, I learned even something then. I went, all right, I should have been a little smarter then, but it was like, it was cool racing Graham because I raced that with him in X Games for endurocross, but that wasn't his discipline because that's more high intensity, and you know, it was really neat to be able to race with him, more his background, and He worked me. He worked us. It was pretty cool though.
My favorite clips from him, I think there's one that goes around on Instagram, but there's guys struggling up a hill. It's like barely wider than single track, and their feet down paddling, just struggling. And he rides by on his back wheel, pivots, and like off the side, and it's just right around these guys. It's so funny.
and he makes it look easy. The top pros at any sport, and they do obstacles, and people go, oh, I want to go do that. Take me to that spot. And I'm like, dude, wait till you get there. You're going to get there, and it's not what it looked like on video because those hills are way steeper, or the obstacles are way gnarlier in person than on video. And, you know, and Graham makes things look easy. You know, the top professional at any sport makes things look way easier than what they are.
We were just talking, we were watching some of your clips, like we said before we started, and you're hustling through some whooped out sections, and like, I could maybe do 20 miles an hour through there and I'd still be scared.
That's
called young and dumb.
That's fair.
Did you ever ride with or against Graham back? Because you did the 6 days in the international race, right? And I know that was a big race for him for a lot of years. Did you guys ever overlap there? Or?
No, we didn't, because the one thing about 6 days, it's kind of like a little moto style. He's more of a hard enduro. I mean, he came from the trial side, and then he got into the hard enduro, and that's where it took off. Erzberg, I've never done Erzberg. I know Cooper wants to do that one. I'd love just to go and be in that environment because it looks
cool.
sick.
Yeah.
It looks so cool. And but no, I don't know if Graham ever did 6 days because it's more of a moto background. It's 6 days racing. He's done like long day rides.
Yeah.
Or like, I should say rides because they're not rides. They're hard enduro stuff. But 6 days is kind of like an enduro as far as timekeeping. And then we go to a special test, and it's like a moto. It's a grass track. It could be on a motocross track, and it's fast as you can go. Where Graham was more of a really technical, hard enduro kind of guy. I'd be interested to see if he did. I might be wrong on that.
Yeah, I thought, because I read his book and he mentioned the International 6 days, but I may be mixing up the races. I'm not sure.
I could be wrong on that. I would actually be interested on that one. You'll have to let me know on that. I'd like to find out too.
Yeah, I'll go back and look that up and see if I'm just confusing it, because I thought there was only one 6 days race. And
there kind of is. Yeah, so
interesting. You mentioned riding the 450 and King of the Motos. Obviously, you're big on the KX500, and some of your videos, it looks like you're putting that thing through like enduro type stuff, and it doesn't really sound like an enduro bike. I wouldn't have pegged it as an enduro bike. How does that work out? How do you feel about the bike? Obviously, you like it, but
there's a lot of the KX500 lovers, so I don't want to piss anybody off there, but they were really, really hard bikes to ride, to be honest with you. The motor-wise I tell people that was my favorite motor of any motorcycle I've been on to this day. You have to really short shift it. It's really about being smooth. But there's always, I could be doing 70 and I have this conversation with quite a few people. And if I need to get on the gas to bunny hop over a ditch or whatever it is, there was plenty of power. Where the 450s nowadays, they lack that. But it was like a 500 motor in a shopping cart. It's like really, it did not handle well. It was scary, and you had to really understand how to ride the bike the right way and respect it, because if you didn't respect it, you were going to be on the ground. And I was fortunate to win a lot of championships on the bike, and it was an awesome bike. It was honestly really cool. And every now and then I get a chance. I ended up selling mine, and then my championship bike went back east into a museum, which is that's
crazy.
So, so that's cool. I dig that. But every now and then I get the opportunity, and I'm like, this is cool, but I'm good. I don't want to ride that too often.
So was there some place that it was like better than others or worse than others? Like what was it good at? Or
you guys are talking about Baja, like that's where that bike shined. It excelled. It was so freaking fast. It was best in the desert. The bike was so damn good. But as far as getting back to the technical stuff, it was a handful to ride, and you just had to keep your finger on the clutch and just really be smooth on it. You had to finesse. It wasn't ride that bike as hard as you can. It was a finesse bike, and
that makes sense.
I think the bikes nowadays are so much better and so much easier to ride than even the two-stroke days, KX250s, and what we used to race a lot on. And I'm like, the 450s, the bikes nowadays, even a 300 two-stroke or extreme, the level has gotten so high because the disciplines, people are really focusing on those disciplines where, like when I was racing, I did a ton of different disciplines. I focused on desert and stuff like that, and that's where I rode the 500, but those bikes were hard to ride. So
at some point, you're just strapping a bomb to your ass and hoping it's going to blow up on you.
Especially in the technical stuff. Like we have a friend who rides a CR 500, and it's from like the late '90s, I think. And he won't take it in anything technical. He says it's like unrideable.
And I have plenty of buddies that still ride it, and and I'm like,
I mean, it's cool looking.
A lot of work.
It's got character. It's got character. It's cool looking. I mean, I could see.
Dude, if I see one in the pits, I'm walking over to it because I want to check it out, and we had a lot of little tricks we did to the bikes, but they were amazing. That's for sure. They were amazing. So.
I think you're right. The bikes have come a long way. I was looking up stats on the CR 500 the other day. We had somebody trolling us on Instagram about needing a 500 two-stroke or whatever, and I was looking it up, and like I have the newer KTM 500. And it actually makes more horsepower than the CR from the 90s. I'm like, I'm not missing anything, and it's easy to ride.
And they work better. And a 4-stroke is so much more power to the ground versus.
It's just easy to put it down.
Yeah. It's just the chassis, suspension, bikes are just unbelievable. My dad has the 500 KTM, and I rode it last week, and I'm like, this bike is fun to me. If I really want to go fast, it's there. Right. If I want to cruise, I'm like, this bike is bitching for that. So
if it's a little heavy, but that's what I love about it. It's pretty versatile.
It's accessible power. It's not just it's not just going to explode on you, and you're it's either on or it's off. It's not a light switch.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a 500 for you. Like,
Yeah.
it is. Hold on. So
Yeah.
What's your preferred bike these days? What do you ride?
Using the KTM 300 most of the time. It's just like, to me, it's a really fun bike to ride.
Yeah.
I like the 354 stroke for more of my moto corner tracks,
Yep.
more aggression, but I would say 80% of the time nowadays is on the 300. I enjoy trail riding. I enjoy single track, and most of my clients, that's what we're working on. And then I have more moto kids, then I'll ride the other bikes. But most of the time, the 300 is what I really enjoy riding the most. It's fun. It's easy. It's just a good bike.
Yeah. I have to agree.
Yeah.
That's the bike I'm
John's
riding.
on a
Mine's
300.
Is that
mine's a
what
bit
you're
older.
riding?
Yeah, I've had that bike for a number of years, and I just keep rebuilding it. And I was fortunate enough to find one with a California plate on it, and I just here in
Worth its weight in
California-
gold.
Yeah, I'm never gonna sell it because I just it's hard to come by here two stroked with a plate on it, and I just keep rebuilding it. It's just a great bike to ride. I love it.
Yeah.
So we really want to talk about the training that you
let's get
do,
into
but
it.
before I do that, I just wanted to ask, what there's like a lot of people looking to get into racing, and it's kind of an exclusive sport, and making it more accessible to younger riders. Like, what would you tell somebody who's wanting to get into the sport professionally? Like, how do you actually go from, just being a decent rider to being a pro rider and then being like a factory rider? Like, how do you get into that world?
No, that's actually a really good question. I don't get that question really rarely, so it's actually a neat question. I think a lot of it is, finding someone, and when I say a trainer, it doesn't need to be me. There's a lot of great trainers out there, and understand how to ride the bike the right way, and the right understanding on how to get yourself faster. Meaning, a lot of people want to just put in miles. Oh, I went and rode 50 miles today or 60 miles. I'm like, that's fun. That's more my fun days or off days, I should say, where it should be about practicing corner tracks. We talk about drills. In any sport, basketball, whatever, what do? You do drills. Football, you do drills. So,
right.
To me, it's understanding how to train. There's so many, there's C, B, A, AA, pro class. There's so many different levels, and it's getting experience. The tough thing is the kids want to have it overnight. And this sport isn't about overnight. You are not going to be, grabbing. You're talking about race car. In a race car, I had a shifter cart, so I enjoyed that. And I'm like, I picked it up pretty quick. But motorcycles, it takes a long time, and just surrounding yourself with a lot of good people. There's a lot of clubs, no matter where you go. There's organizations nowadays. There's on Instagram, social media, Facebook pages. There's so many groups that I'm like. I do two female camps, and I do advanced and a newer group. And it was so awesome to see them all kind of connect. And now they're all riding together. And now some of them started racing, and now they're trying to do their first hard enduro or this. And I love that. And I think it's just learning. It's like, don't worry about failing. Don't worry about looking stupid, because we're all going to fall. We're all going to make mistakes. And it's part of it. It's life. It's like, man, learn from your mistakes. If you make a mistake, all right, what did I do wrong? How am I going to get better? Learn from that. I start rambling about other topics, but
no, I love
it's
it. I have so many questions that you're triggering. This is fantastic.
But it's like, if I get into the sport, I tell people just find clubs, and here in Arizona we have a lot of great ones, and I'll send them links.
They're all over. They're all over the place. We're in a couple just locally here that are a ton of fun. It's just guys to go hang out with. It's like
exactly, and I'm like, dude, you have a passion for something that hundreds of thousands of people have that same passion, and not probably far from your area. Next thing you know, like looking at you two, I'm like, that's cool. You guys have a cool vibe about you, and you guys ride together and stuff like that.
Making me blush.
You guys both rolled your eyes, so I don't know.
It's funny. My daughter was asking me who we had on the podcast just a few minutes ago, and I was telling her, she doesn't know who you are, but I was telling her, like, he's legit famous, and she's like, man, so you're famous, Dad? And I'm like, no, I'm not famous. I just talk to famous people.
No, I'm not famous by any means. Yeah, I was just lucky to do something I did well at, but I loved.
That's,
I'm like,
that's cool though.
I'm average Joe, man. I'm a quiet guy, and I'm passionate for the sport. And
what I've realized though. Like a lot of people, I realize a lot of people in this sport who do really well, like once you get them on the phone and you chat with them for a while, like very down to earth people. And I think that's something about this sport that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And off-road more so, and I'm not knocking motocross or supercross, but it's a different environment there. Even when I raced outdoors, I'd be on the starting gate and, I'd look over off-road. I could be lining up to, like, say, Kurt Caselli, who was a legend, and we really were competitive, but we were buddies, It's like, it was a respect, but fuck, I wanted to kick his ass, and he wanted to kick my ass. It was just, if it was coming towards the end, you better not leave that door open because I knew he was coming. Or and it's the same thing for all racers. We're off-road, I'll be like, hey, good luck, and, I'd say good luck to a lot of the guys. Where supercross, motocross, when I lined up, I look over and I'd tell someone good luck, and they'd look at you like, what are you doing talking to me? Like, it's just a different environment. It's just more, I don't want to say cutthroat because that might sound bad, but it's just so much more intense where off-road is so much more fun to me. I'm like, I love moto. Motocross is something I really enjoyed, but I enjoyed the atmosphere of off-road and, kind of getting back to 99.9% of the off-road community is amazing. So
I liked what you said too, but going back to sort of how you get into the sport of this focus training concept, because we spent, I don't know, a lot of years, 10 years or whatever, riding, just goofing off. And it wasn't until the last couple of years we started kind of trying to hit some specific techniques. And 2 years ago I thought, like, I'm getting older at this point, like I'm as good as I'm gonna get, like this is it. And I, probably doubled my skill since then, whatever that means. But a lot of it is like we built a little track here on the property, and it's nothing serious, some log hops and a matrix or whatever. But like just hitting that stuff, I've noticed a significant improvement, and that translates directly out to the trail in stuff that you can do that I wouldn't have even tried. I would never have thought possible before. So I really like that aspect of like hit something and learn it.
And we do sections. I do working with people, and the mindset is about, we talked a little bit earlier, we hit on it, is the mindset is being positive, not negative. Don't come to a section and tell yourself, oh, I can't do that. Oh, I'm going to go to the bars. I'm like, that's just negativity you're putting in your mind. And I'm like, be positive. Tell yourself, oh, drop your heels, be on your toes, stand, open up. Like, there's so many different aspects that go in it. Use your legs. And, it's like, it's neat when I have a lot of clients that are cleaning sections that they've never done. And I'm like, that was sick. And they're excited. And I'm like, all right, let's go do it again. And next thing you know, they're like, I would have never did that before. And I'm like, we're getting out of that comfort zone. This is how you're going to make yourself better. And it doesn't matter if you're a racer or an average rider. Like, I have a lot of people think I work with just pros. And I'm like, maybe 5%, to be honest with you. Majority of my riders are local racers coming from other states, how to train. And I have 4-day programs. We'll stay at the house. We have a gym in our guest house. And, now, of course, I'm rambling again, but we have some fun. That's cool. We have some fun things we do. And we have breakfast at the house. We grab lunch. We have dinner together. We work out. We foam roll. We'll stretch. And it's like, for my racers, and even I have a lot of older clients that they just want to go fun riding. They're not worried about the training as much versus the 4 days of just hanging out. It's a good time. And then I have the young kid that just left yesterday, did a 4-day camp from Wyoming, and it was all about sprints, training, and he wanted to see what kind of programs we do. And it was cool because on his 4th day, he was like, this was awesome. And now I know what I need to do. And he's already excited for the first race in a couple weeks because he's like, I would say we need more time than training 2 weeks before your first race, but at least now he understands what he needs to do.
Yeah, it's a start. I mean, you got to start somewhere. I like that.
Sounds like it builds a really good foundation.
Yeah.
For, no matter where you are in your training career, right? Like, if you're just starting out, man, if I had, a professional racer to talk to, I would have saved a lot of falls. Yeah.
Started training a long time ago, right?
Yeah. I think in life in general, we all look back and go, man, I wish I would have known that now. And me as a, being almost 50 now, I'm like, I look back and I'm like, man, I did so many things wrong and I learned from them. But like you just talked about that's a perfect example of, like, man, I
we just
make it a great foundation, a base. We call the base foundation is you can't just be a new rider. I want to ride that K. I want to go over a K rally. You're like, no, dude, we got so much other stuff to do before we get to that. So you nailed it on making a foundation, and I think I'm big about that.
I like it too, because like when you spend a lot of time on the trail, I don't know. I thought we were training for a lot of years, but like when you're trail riding, you're just trying to get through, and you don't really do it right. You just get over it, and you think, I'm good, and you go on. And it's not till you put a track up and you're like, okay, I have to actually learn to do this with some finesse, and then you realize how far you have to go.
Yeah, now
and then you play around and not dab, okay, let's try not to put our feet down. Let's try and just make it more challenging every time you clean something. Like, all right, now let's try this. Right. Now start 5 feet from that log. Right.
But you kind of started in on this, but tell us a little bit about your training program. We wanted to dive into that, and what's the deal?
Yeah, the DA8 training is, and a lot of people call date training. I'm like, oh crap, I never thought of it as date training. It was my initials, and then my national number was 8. So I'm like,
I just saw your initials in it for what that's worth.
Oh, yeah. I met my wife at 18, so I'm like, I don't know anything about dating, and I'm like, but yeah. So I offer a lot. I do boot camps. We do 4-day camps where people come and stay at our place, and then I do individuals. I kind of travel a lot on the weekends or in the summers. It gets hot here in Arizona. I'm starting to slow down now, but I just enjoy. I don't know, say giving back. I enjoy trying to help riders meet their goals or help riders just be smoother and safer and more efficient on the motorcycle. I'm like, to me, that's big. People talk about motorcycles as such a dangerous thing, and I'm like, depends on how you ride it. If you don't ride it, it's like driving a car. If you're just gonna haul ass everywhere you're going, I'm like, it's gonna be dangerous. It's the same way on a motorcycle is knowing your limits, practicing a lot of drills. We talked about drills as braking drills, because a braking drill is so important on making sure you're in the right position, because your stopping power is going to be so much shorter. And that's if a ditch comes up, if somebody pulls out, if it's an animal, right. I'm like, that's a safety thing. So that's probably one of the biggest things, working about weighting the pegs. I just enjoy the motorcycle side. And, I used to have a gym, D8 training. We used to have a big gym. We actually had NFL, MLB. Wow. We had Taylor Robert. We had a ton of pro athletes. And then 3-4 years ago, we ended up closing it because, the wife and I both got diagnosed with cancer, and it was doing well, but not being there. We ended up shutting that down, and I became a certified personal trainer. So I understood that aspect, and that's kind of like hitting on things like I was training the wrong way for so many years until I worked with good trainers. And, so now those things I like to put emphasis on is, people that stay here at the house is we spend time in the gym and recovery, and it depending on what type of riding or racing you're doing, it's like I can either teach you how to ride the bike the right way and just be a good rider, and then if you get into racing, and then we'll work on different things. Or if you're a top racer and you want to understand, rest is just as important as training. A lot of people are work, and I'm like, recovery is really important and overlooked. Sleep. There's so many different aspects to, the racers, the young racers I see that are trying to just, I got to do more. And I'm like, dude, you can overdo it, to be honest with you. And, that's
that
another
makes
topic,
sense.
I'm sure, but yeah.
I never appreciated good sleep until I probably, I don't know, mid-30s maybe, and it finally started to catch up with me, and you're like, shit, I gotta actually go to bed.
Yeah.
And now the joke, of course,
sleep,
is like, I gotta go to bed at 8 o'clock. Like, I'm in bed before my kids. Whatever. But so is there any particular kind of like riding that you train or specialize in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I didn't hit on that. So I came from a motocross background. So last weekend we were at Arizona Cycle Park, which is a motocross track. I worked with a group out there on the moto side. Of course, I come from endurocross and extreme. I come from desert racing. So a lot of it is tailored to what the rider wants to focus on. So when I'm emailing, I answer all my emails. When I'm emailing back and forth and we're trying to schedule something, I ask a lot of questions, and I'm like, whatever I can help with, I want to help with. And that's finding out what they need what their weakness is or whatever this is. But to answer your question on type of riding, it just depends on what they want to work on. Here, and we live in Northwest Phoenix, and we have a bunch of awesome riding here. We have corner tracks, sand tracks. We have hard enduro. We have our enduro cross, our private enduro cross track. There's so many different disciplines that I train people on. And then I have big flat openings where I'll do cone drills on newer riders and just teaching them how to let out the clutch, how to stop, how to stand up on the bike and compensate, so
it's like full spectrum.
I was just going to say, I honestly work on all different kinds of riding, and kind of back to what I enjoyed racing. I still enjoy a good enduro cross or a good extreme rider coming and goes, hey, I want to train. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be bitching because now I get to go ride hard enduro with this, because the last few weeks it's just been newer riders, and I'm like, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when I get to go ride with them, and it's fun, and, we work a lot of different things there too.
Is there anything where you're seeing consistently, like, say, beginner riders to advanced, maybe not like quite pro class, but is there anything where you're seeing a consistent kind of things that people are doing wrong, and maybe like just things to like know about kind of across the board?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good. Is standing. A lot of people, even in going in rocks, whatever it is they're like, they feel like if I sit down, I'm closer to the ground. Honestly, when you sit down, you're actually sitting on top of the seat, which is one of the higher points of the motorcycle. As soon as you stand up, the center of gravity is so much lower. You think all that weight is on the pegs now. Now you're using your legs as another suspension device. For hard enduro cross, we talk about standing. I use the analogy of a jockey on the horse a lot. Like, my riders, they get tired of hearing it, but I'm like, you see a jockey with their reins, which is basically a rope. They're literally just working with that horse. The motorcycle is basically our horse. We really want to be efficient to where if I'm pulling on the bars, and there's aspects you'll have to do that going up a hill or stand, and you're trying to get weight to that rear tire. But overall, you should be really loose. When I'm standing on the ground, like if I'm just standing up, it should almost be the same concept on a motorcycle. Now, if I work on aggression, then I'm compensating. I'm either hinging at my hips, dropping my head forward to compensate that bike pulling me back. But that, as far as a beginner rider to a more pro rider, is riders like to sit. Newer riders sit way more than an advanced rider would on the motorcycle. An advanced rider is going to stand. Braking, if you're riding really fast or anything like that, and you're having to get on the brakes, you will see 99% of the riders, or the good riders, will be off. Their hips are closer to the rear fender, and they're weighting the pegs. Where then I see a newer rider is just sitting on the seat, locking up that rear brake, and now their hips are going with the bike. And I'm like, no, we really want to be standing and using that front brake. And
that makes a ton of sense, because if you're weighting the pegs, like I stand almost all the time, so I feel like I've got that right, but I hadn't thought about why. Obviously, legs as suspension is a big deal, but I hadn't thought about how much lower you drop the center of gravity for the bike by putting your weight down low. That's interesting.
And it's like you can dab away, meaning you can touch the ground, but try to ideally weight that other peg.
Right.
Still, don't just sit down. Dab, meaning touch the ground. Just try to keep momentum going instead of being on and off the throttle, changing the weight balance there. Try to be smoother with the throttle, which makes the bike easier to ride level versus you change. Same thing, corner speed. If I'm in a corner and I'm on and off, that bike is going back and forth, where you can slow down and just carry momentum through the corner. That will make you faster. And there's a lot of other tricks that I'll make people come to see me before I give them to you guys. So.
Does it? No, that's fair. Does standing up work as well like cornering? You see like a lot of the motocross guys, like you sit down, leg out, all that whole thing.
It depends. If it's a hairpin or really tight, like Supercross, through such tight corners. If it's choppy and the bike's bouncing, but if it's flowy, like a lot of our off-road single track trails are really flowy. I'm pretty much kind of like skiing, like a skier. Mm-hmm. I'm really weighting the pegs, bending my legs, working the outside, weight the inside for a second, get that bike to lean, and then weight that outside peg. And we're more about steering with our legs as far as, if you take a foot on and off the bike, you'll feel that bike go back and forth. And so a lot of the flowy stuff, we stay standing, but we're not using our arms a whole lot versus we're weighting our feet and our legs and kind of steering that way.
That's super interesting. Do people bring their own bikes to your classes, or do you have bikes, or how does that work?
Yeah, no, so I do have some bikes. I have 4 bikes here KTMs, and people rent them. I have a lot of people, like a few weeks ago, I had someone come in for a 4-day camp, just rented my 350, and we did that. But then I have most of my clients usually are driving from another place, and they bring their own bike. But the bikes they ride are full race bikes. They're really 21, 22 KTMs, and they're legit. Like, they are fully prepped, and so
nice.
So it's easy for people to do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think we're sort of close on time. We've got a few more questions. If you're okay, I'd love to keep going for just a few more minutes. That's cool.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to most of our training questions.
No.
We might have to make a part 2 out of this.
That's my fault.
Well, no. We'll have to bring. So part of the whole purpose of this podcast is we want to bring the people that watch us some sort of new perspective or new angle on the sport. So when you start talking, that's exactly what we're getting. So
cool.
we love it.
I ramble. My wife's like, "You always ramble." I'm like, "I know, I'm bad."
No, that's great. That's really what I think we want.
People want to hear you talk, not us as much. So that's cool. You want to jump into cancer? Can we talk about cancer?
Oh yeah.
Only because you put it on a bunch of different places, so we figured it was a safe topic. My dad actually passed of cancer too, so I.
Oh, did you say you did or
no? My dad passed away from cancer, so I have some connection with it. It was a few years ago. But.
No, that's I wouldn't say I respect that. That's not like the right thing. But cancer is so many affected by so many people, and in 2016 of May, I got diagnosed with leukemia, ALL, Ph positive, and it was a really tough 2 years. And
it sounds like a scary one.
I was diagnosed. Yeah, I was diagnosed. My wife got diagnosed with breast cancer
when
we were back in Houston, and so that was a shit show for 2 years, pretty much. Like, we were just getting through, and it went well, and everything's gone well. And now my wife is fighting again. It's moved to her bones, so now she's dealing with bone cancer, and we were at a doctor's appointment this morning, and she's an amazing woman, and we always talk about the mental side, and I'm a big believer on mental, like, positive. We talk about writing. I'm like, in life, I'm like, trust me, we could be negative about a lot of things, but that negativity is not going to do us any good, and it's I'm not going to say it's not a struggle, because I deal with daily. I think about things that I have to remind myself through. I have to breathe. I just need to relax. And, we're very lucky, but cancer is tough, and it hit home. And my wife and I decided to start the Be Strong Foundation, which is a nonprofit 501c3. And we give back to just cancer patients. And, a lot of it, usually all of our cancer patients are in our industry, which we enjoy even more. Or we know someone in our industry, and it's a family related, and we enjoy helping them out. And it's not a big foundation, but we enjoy helping people out as much as we can. And so, especially with my wife, and as far as talking about it, we really don't have any problems, because I talk to a lot of the guys that are dealing with cancer, and my wife talks to a lot of the females dealing with cancer, and having somebody to reach out to or talk to is really good. And actually, I have I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's on Amazon. It's on a lot of things. I have a documentary about me and my family. Strong Destry. What is it? Strong. Damn it! Now I just drew blanks.
Destry Abbott Strong. And stuff.
I watched that actually.
The Destry Abbott story. How bad is that now? I'm like brain fading, but and it's like, we enjoy trying to help other people, because we were blessed. Our community, we talk about motorcycles, it's a family, and we had so many great people reach out to us and help us out, either financially, bills, food, whatever it was. And it was, during those 2 years, were really hard for us. And, and even to this day, it's we're going through a lot, but, it's like, we're still pretty damn lucky. It could be worse, so.
If any of the people who follow us wanted to, make a donation or something like that to your foundation, is there a way to do that, or somewhere you want to point people? Yeah,
so we have a website, dahstrong.org, and that's our nonprofit. And then we have an Instagram and a Facebook that, since my wife's been fighting again, we just haven't been able to stay up on it much and do much with it. We still have some financial money's coming in that we're helping people out with, but we haven't been able to stay on top of it, because we're volunteering. We have a couple other people that are helping out, but pretty much my wife is in charge of it. And she doesn't need more stress on her plate as far as, trying to post and do all these other things. But we enjoy helping people out as much as we can. So any really help, cool. And it's not for us, it's for cancer patients. I always have to clarify that to people, because I'm like, we're on the committee. We can't actually touch any of the money, and it goes towards cancer patients. So
that's super cool. We'll throw a link for that in the description for the show notes for this one. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, not to add any more burdens to the table, but
no, it sounds like a cool program, and I can appreciate that, and I really like. I'm impressed and sort of inspired by your positivity outlook. I'm a big believer in that. I've got early onset arthritis, and it's not bad, but like, it's definitely made me think about positive thinking and sort of seeing the good in stuff and making the best of situations, and I hugely appreciate that. So
yeah, no, that's cool. I like that, because I have little demons in my head, and I got to fight with them sometimes, And I think that's a lot of people, it's like, just communicate. My wife is awesome to where I could talk to her, and she's just like, suck it up sometimes. But, like,
that's what you need, though.
She's not like that, but no, she's awesome.
That's cool. Well, maybe we can jump off to a lighter topic. I wanted to sort of wrap up the conversation today by asking a little bit about the history of the sport. So you've been in it longer than I have, and I think you were professionally active, before I was in the sport, which is awesome. And I'm wondering, what changes have you seen? I don't know what I wrote down. Like, what has the sport lost, and what has the sport gained over the last, let's say, 20 years or something that you've seen?
No, that's actually a really good question. I think the sport has grown more now. Now it's more mainstream, where when I was I graduated high school, late 90s, and motorcycles, it was about ball stick sports. Motorcycles was not cool. I was like the weird guy in high school riding motorcycles. To see the sport now more mainstream, extreme, like X Games, all this stuff, it's so cool. Now I see more motorcycles than I ever have when I was a kid. It's neat. When I was in my prime, which was early 2000s, the sport was amazing because financially it was awesome. I was making a lot more money than the guys are even making now. So that's the sad part is, honestly, I got 11 bikes a year. Like Kawasaki would send me 11 bikes and for free. Here it is. And then I had a salary and bonuses. And I'm like, nowadays, factory guys are trying to get 3-4 bikes and make a living. So it's sad to see how the sport has grown so much, yet it's not giving back as much as I would like to see it. It's top heavy. When it comes to Supercross, those guys are making millions, but it's pretty much after 8th, 9th place, even if that, the other guys are making 6 figures, which is awesome, but it really drops off. So it's top heavy. I wish the sport would, build that back up, and I don't know what that would take to get there, but our numbers as far as bike sales, especially right now, like you can't even find a bike, you can't even find parts, like you can't
buy anything. Now we're having to stock up on parts just to keep shift levers and shit working. Like
exactly. So now the manufacturers and accessories and all that, they don't have to worry about giving a lot of stuff away to get marketing because they can't even keep enough in stock.
Right.
So they're like, we can't do much for you this year because we don't have anything. And I'm like, man, that kind of sucks in a way. And I understand it, but it's like, you guys are doing so good, but you're cutting back to keep the money. Where I think for our sport to grow is like, we need to support youth riders. We need to support the females. We need to I'm big about supporting our whole community. And if it's contingency program, we used to have way more contingencies, bike parts, kids would go do local races, make $150 and they'd go buy it on parts. And I'm like, this is what's helping our sport grow. And you don't see that as much right now. So, the sport is awesome. I'm not knocking it, but there's little things like that.
There's always stuff to fix, right?
It seems short-sighted in that, there's a PR war. I don't know if it's what you want to say, but like, there's also the other side of it where there's definitely a lot of people who get a bad impression of the sport because of, some of it's earned, some of it's not. It seems like, these while the sport is definitely in, growth phase and it's getting bigger and bigger, and you want to do as much as you can to promote that and make it bigger. And, because, it's like here in California, we've basically lost all of our two strokes, and there's like legislations that's being passed and things like that where we're not.
It feels like the sport is sort of politically an outsider, which is probably true.
Right.
That you're losing territory, that, the cops are after you, the trails get closed, the two strokes are out, it's just like a lot of that going on. And, which I think is really unfortunate to see given the sort of benefits of the sport. But
it's really just a public opinion trajectory, right? Like you need to be able to show people like, hey, the sport is, it's just full of good people.
It has merit.
It has, it's good. It's a good thing to have, right? Like, and I don't know if that's really something that the manufacturers are really doing a good job of promoting in a lot of ways. Like,
which I wonder about, because if the sport gets sort of whittled away at, well, who are they going to sell to? That was always on my mind.
No, you guys, that was actually really good. And I know like KTM, Husqvarna, Gas. I work closely with their marketing team, and to hit on that, they are trying to build like the youth. They have the 50 program with KTM thing at the Supercross, but they really have youth programs. They really want to help the younger riders because they know, and I think the Japanese manufacturers are the same way, as they know that this is where we got to go. Our future is down here. Of course, the older riders are the ones that have the money, that are spending it. But I know my daughter did club volleyball. Both our kids were in sports, and we would spend money on our kids. When it comes to the kids, we would spend money on them. And I'm like, we spend a lot of money. But it's like, I enjoy that. And I think you guys have both nailed that, is like, that's what our industry needs to really focus on is, hey, how do we get the kids involved? And I know they're working on even better bikes and safer and things like that. But I don't have the answer. And I know they are trying to build on that though.
That's fair.
Maybe one of the best questions, and I know here again we're up on time, but probably a good place to end off is obviously you and your family have become kind of an expert of passing this sport on from one generation to the next. And I wanted to ask that question specifically because obviously we talked to Cooper, and obviously he loves the sport. And like, what do you think is the secret of passing this on from one generation to the next? Because I actually don't have kids, and I want my kids to ride because I want to get, I want to be in my 50s and riding with my kids when they're, in their 20s. And I know, Cal, you have kids, and
I'd love to get them back into it. I think I pushed too hard, and like I think I scared them out of it, trying to make them ride like I ride, and they didn't want to do that.
Yeah, they didn't want to go push their bikes up mountains.
I don't blame them. What 14-year-old wants to bust their ass the way we do? It's like, don't work that hard.
Yeah, we're a screw loose in ways, so yeah. But it's a great question, and I tell people, and I'm not saying I'm right or I have the answer to it, but I'm like, have fun with them. Literally, don't push them. I have younger riders I work with that are like, have a lot of potential, and dad is like, jump that dude. And I'm like, dude, just like calm down. Like, he's 8 years old. Like, let him have fun right now. Like, let him ride, work some drills. Try to implement things like, hey, let's do a lap. Let me time you. Let's see how fast. Okay, this time try to stand longer, and having fun with your kids. Something Cooper, my daughter Kelsey, is we try to have fun with them. Really, Cooper did track. He played football. He did other sports, basketball. He was big in high school. He didn't get into motorcycles because I think in one aspect he didn't want to follow my footsteps. He felt like, I don't want to. Like,
it's hard to compete, right?
Yeah, and it sounds weird saying that, but it's like, and then I always tell him, buddy, who gives a shit what other people think? Do not worry about what that person's thinking over there. If you're having fun, go have fun on the bike. No, I don't care if you try. That's my thing. My dad was always big as don't give up, make sure you're trying. And I wanted it myself. And, to answer your question a little bit, as far as not yelling or pushing, and trust me, I yelled at Cooper plenty of times, but it's like, just try to have fun with them and make the environment a good time. And that's family, and, just follow the leader. And there's times as they get more speed or they get fast or they want to go to the next level, then it gets a little more serious. Just like any sport that you'd be putting the kids in, is coaches get a little bit tougher. Me, I'm not that coach. I'm not a hard coach as far as I'm not going to yell at you. I'll tell you things you need to work on, and I'm going to be positive. When you do something good, I'm going to let you know. Where I've worked with, like I said, I did sports all through, and I didn't react well with dads or coaches that were really hard on me, meaning you were never able to satisfy what they wanted. Where I wanted to be around somebody who was like positive and like, you can do this. And I'm like, all right, dude, I want to make this guy proud. I want to do well. And that's, I think, with kids, with mom and dad, is they want to make mom and dad proud. Meaning, if I'm out here having fun, and I have a lot of youth riders that I got to pull them off the track because they're having a blast. And I'm like,
that's cool.
That is an awesome thing. I love seeing kids out there smiling. Last weekend, there was like 12 kids on the little peewee track. And I'm like, I just stopped and watched and cheered them on because I go, this is sick. I'm like, we talked about a second ago, this is our next
future of the sport, right?
This is the future. This is so cool. And they're just having a ball. And I'm like, I just think the kids need to have fun, especially at a really young age. And knowing their limits.
I love that answer. And I think, like, to be completely honest, I think I went wrong there. You know, I pushed myself really hard, and I wanted my kids to push themselves that way too. And I think I took the fun out of it, which is such a bummer. And
but it'll come back. We've all made mistakes. Like, I've made plenty of mistakes. And, you know, it's like, there's times, all right, I pushed Cooper too much there. I need to take a step back. And now that he's older and Dad, I'll get it. Like, I'm like, all right, you're right, buddy. Sorry. You know, it's like,
well, for what it's worth,
he's better than I am. You know,
he told us that you'd never pushed him really to race, and that's why he's in it now or whatever. So hey, that worked out.
But it's what he wants. I'm like,
that's cool.
I want to push my kids or anybody. If I know you can do it, I'm going to try to push you. Like, come on, you can do this. Like, but I'm not going to force my kids to get on a motorcycle. You need to go do a 30-minute moto. And I'm like, if you want to put in the work, it's our generation now. I'm like, man, you got to work to get where you're at. Like, nobody's giving it to you. And, you know, I'm like, just put in the work. I guarantee you it will come. There's plenty of jobs, and another whole topic we're not going to get into, but
I love that thought. I totally agree. Yeah. I mean, you got to work for what you want, and I love that.
Yes.
Well, we're way over time, and super appreciate it. No, I listen, we could talk we'd go 3 hours with you if we didn't stop ourselves somewhere. So we'll call it.
I think
hugely appreciate
we need to have a part 2 and ask some of these training questions, because it sounds like, I mean, obviously you have just a lifetime's worth of wisdom when it comes to setting up bikes and racing. And
we didn't even get to bike setup.
There's so many things I want to know still. So at some point we'll have to do this again. This was a lot of fun.
Well, I apologize for rambling. I'm honored that you guys wanted me on, and I'm looking forward to sharing this on my pages and trying to get more people to you guys, because you guys are doing an awesome job with everything you're doing, and we need more people like you guys. So I respect that, and thank you.
Super appreciate it. We'll stay in touch, and hopefully we'll have you back on at some point.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Take care.
See ya.
Alrighty, folks, that's a wrap. We just completed our 7th podcast with Destry Abbott, who was a super cool guy to talk to.
Yeah, it was a good one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to that conversation, even though I didn't really participate all that much. I had a bunch of questions, but it was just really interesting.
We ran out of time. I mean, that was...
No, an hour is not long enough. Like, it was like...
You all want to sit for 3, right?
Yeah, no.
Can we comment? How long can we go before you bail?
Cody was saying, like, when does podcasting follow, like, the TV show, like now a episode of like a TV show is like an hour long. Where
so you used to go to the movies, right? But now it's like Netflix has perfected this. Like, we have 10 episodes of this movie, and just drag that shit out. That's what we're gonna do. This is part 4 of our interview with Destry Abbott.
I mean, I think it would take part 4, like 4 hours of talking to just kind of like unpack all of the questions.
Dude, so what? He's just turned 50 this year, and he's got like 50 fucking years of like incredible experiences that I mean, it's mind-boggling, and he's got life experience to weave on top of it. There's an endless number of things to talk about. Like,
I mean, it's you're passionate about it, and like how can you not just go on and on about it? But no, it was so cool.
Highlight of this podcast is we talked to a pro racer about our experience with a different pro racer, which was fucking cool. I almost feel like we're part of this dirt biking thing.
Yeah,
finally.
we just went and like dipped our toe into the world of moto.
Yeah, I feel like that moment where it was like, man, this is like a real thing, and it's honestly, it's such a privilege to talk to these guys. It's funny, I was mentioning it in the podcast, but like my daughter was like, man, you talk to famous people, so you're a famous person. I'm like, no, I can't claim that. But he definitely talked to some cool people, and Destry was definitely one of those.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They're all fun. Like favorite podcasts, but like
everyone is the new favorite, right? Yeah. It's just
so
the
cool.
recency bias.
Yeah,
yeah. But anyway, this one's gone on long enough. Show notes.
We didn't talk about our mounts. We always forget to do this.
Yeah, we do. Here, you do it this time. I think I did the last two.
All right. So the one thing that keeps our little adventure going here is the mounts that we make for helmets. So we make helmet-specific GoPro mounts. There are a lot of cool features to these, but we make them for like, well, I don't know, probably over 70 helmets now.
We keep saying, I think we're just making up numbers at this point. I have no idea. There's
well,
like 58
we've said 60
listed
for a long time, so
it doesn't matter. But
well, we don't have all of the helmets listed on our website.
True.
So
there's a shitload of them. If you have a helmet, we probably have it.
Yeah.
If we don't, please message us and let us know. We don't, we would love to make it for you.
Yeah, we're cranking them out as quickly as we can, and
these are awesome. Links in the description. You can learn all about them. Message us. We've got the website where you can find all the models. We've got Instagram where you can see what the footage looks like. It's a cool product, and we've got actually some other stuff coming too. We've got I guess we'll preview it when it's real, but we've got some other stuff coming down the line. Like and subscribe to this video because we have more of these podcasts coming. We've got one next week, which will be next month for you all, but and we've got 6 in the bag so far with some really cool people, and you don't want to miss those.
If you have any recommendations for people you want to hear us interview, definitely put that down in the description below, because I'd like to hear any recommendations.
Who should we bring on, or what kinds of topics should we cover, or what questions should we ask? We're open ears for all that stuff. So I feel like I've talked enough.
Yeah, that's
really,
a wrap.
I could keep talking forever. Turn me off. Turn my mic off. Someone stop. Are the cameras still running? Oh. Fade away.